Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for coming today. A few minutes from now, you will be able to answer pretty much any question about squirrels. The squirrel family is an odd mix of different squirrels. The squirrel family includes tree squirrels, ground squirrels. I remember in San Diego being mesmerized by the sight of dozens of ground squirrels, all sitting quietly on the rocks, staring out to sea, just thinking about things like little versions of Socrates. The family also includes chipmunks and marmots, which includes groundhogs who seem to come out in the spring, determined to sit within inches of speeding highway traffic. I do believe they have a taste for asphalt. It includes prairie dogs, who are not only decidedly appealing, but as you probably know, studies show they can use verbs. Yes, verbs. And they can let other prairie dogs know if the person entering their area is a stranger. And if not a stranger, whether friend or foe. They can even differentiate between the color of clothes the person is wearing, and they have different calls for all those things and for every kind of snake. In the mix are also equatorial African pygmy squirrels. They're not much bigger than a caterpillar, well, a bit, and they weigh less than a teaspoon. And then there's the Bhutan giant flying squirrel, who lives in the forests of Nepal, Bhutan, and regions of India. That one grows to be up to 4 feet long. I went to boarding school in the everlasting snows of the Indian Himalayas, and we never saw a squirrel anywhere, just monkeys everywhere. Those monkeys were devilish. They would invade our dormitories, sit on our beds, go through our drawers, and pick through all our things, and then throw away what they didn't want, tossing it onto the floor. Monkeys will take whatever you've got. Handbags, makeup, the works. Give me squirrels any day. They don't sit mocking you with your undies on their heads. In Washington, our local squirrels do try to get inside once in a while. They know that we have nuts because in winter we put some out. So they sometimes hang upside down in the window and stare at you and chatter away until you can't hear anyone on that Zoom call, and so you fork the nuts over. Squirrels have really good eyesight too, and I swear they can spot us opening our office nut drawer from across the street. That's because, unlike us, who have focused vision only in the small central part of the retina, the macula, which leaves the rest of our vision field a blur, squirrels have focused vision over their entire retinal surface that gives them excellent peripheral vision. Their lenses also have a yellow pigment that reduces glare, sort of like a pair of UV blocking sunglasses. So you can ask, who is that squirrel behind those Foster Grants? Flying squirrels, being nocturnal, have super acute night vision. They would make great cat burglars. Well, squirrel burglars. They're also night owls, of course. Well, night squirrels. You know the expression, if pigs had wings. Well, northern flying squirrels are only 6 inches long, but they can glide for 150 feet or more. And giant flying squirrels are really impressive. They can glide for nearly 1,500 feet. That's 5 football fields. They'd make a fortune if a team recruited them. Flying squirrels have what's called a patagium. A patagium is a cloak of skin, a bit like webbed feet, really, that reaches from their wrists to their ankles, and then it extends outwards at their wrists with a special cartilage rod, which gives them a massive wingspan. When they're flying, they can just lower an arm to make a 180-degree turn. That's in flight, and that will help them avoid predators. They use their hands, their feet, and their tails to steer to a soft landing. And very cleverly, Right after gliding from one tree to another, they quickly slip around the back of the tree to avoid owls or others with evil intentions who may have been tracking their flight. I wish all squirrels could fly, because after a hurricane or a tornado or even a nor'easter in Norfolk, and we get them all, especially orphan squirrels are found on the ground. We love our wildlife rehabilitators. Now, perhaps you know this. I felt ridiculous not to have known it, but tree squirrels can rotate their ankles 180 degrees so that their hind paws point all the way backwards, which allows them to descend a tree head first. You've seen that. That talent and their sharp claws gives them phenomenal acrobatic ability, so they can move just about anywhere with speed. If cats had those rotating ankles, PETA would save an awful lot on tree services. Some smarty pants fireman once said to me, "I've never seen a cat skeleton in a tree. They'll come down when they want to." But actually, they can't. They get up there and they have to stay up there in storms, going without food, because they need help to get down. They may well fall to their deaths. So don't take any guff about, oh, just leave them up there and in the end they'll find their way down. They won't. Gray squirrels talk a lot. They use barks, screeches, chatter, and whistles. And they talk with their tails, simple flicks, and other complex movements that we can't interpret. And just as cats will have that question mark tail, or a dog will cock his head at you, squirrels will stand erect, for example, to indicate alertness or stomp their feet, and use facial expressions that we can't recognize but other squirrels can. When threatened, a squirrel often starts with tail waving to warn away the predator. If cats see this signal, they know they've lost the element of surprise, and usually they'll abandon the attack. Then, of course, they'll pretend they weren't going to attack anyway. You know how cats do that thing. If the predator doesn't relent, however, the squirrel will start to make warning calls. Of course, if there's a dog like my father's dog, Flip, the squirrel had better not stop to make those calls, as that dog would go right up the tree after him. Flip usually would slide all the way back downwards on the trunk afterwards. No one had to go and get him. And one has to be grateful that most human males don't do this. When boy squirrels are trying to be seductive, they imitate the sounds of infant squirrels asking to be fed. Male squirrels also slap the bark of a tree very loudly with their paws to draw attention to how wonderful they are. If they could, they'd probably wear muscle shirts and rev their engines at girl squirrels. They sound like awful dates. And they're not monogamous. But then again, neither are female squirrels. Male squirrels also chew on a bit of bark, and then they rub their cheeks or their scent glands on their feet or their faces on the chewed spot, and this warns of territorial boundaries. And males sometimes spray, like a cat, to keep others away, as if to say, this office with the nuts inside it is all mine. Squirrels are vegans, of course. They're big on tree bark and buds and berries and seeds, acorns, nuts, especially walnuts and hazelnuts. A squirrel can bury roughly 10,000 nuts for winter, 10,000. They stash only one nut in a particular spot, not a single large stash that could easily be pilfered. And they're so clever and persistent about getting whatever people leave out for birds that I never tire of seeing this video.
This little guy's been working for about 15 minutes, and I had the lid on tight because I didn't want to make it easy for him. And so now you see him, he's thinking about giving up. But one more try here, and you see him actually start turning the lid, and then once he realizes, he takes hold of it, unscrews it, grabs the lid, runs to the neighbor's yard and hides it, and then comes back for his reward.
There was a terrible storm in DC one night. And the next morning, I kept seeing twigs falling from a nearby tree, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. Then I saw a gray squirrel appear, and she gathered them all up. Apparently, she'd lost her nest, and she was going around the tree, snipping off certain lengths of twig with her teeth, and then letting them fall to the earth, and then coming down and picking them up to weave a new nest. How these nests are made is incredible. The squirrels actually start their nests using twigs with leaves still attached, and they weave them together. Then they add a soft inner layer of grass, moss, or other leaves. They sometimes prepare more than one nest so that they have a spare, but apparently this squirrel had lost both of them or only had one. In winter, if a squirrel can find one, they'll outfit a tree cavity because it's such a safe place to have their children. So that's squirrels for you.